And welcome everybody to the Daily Space Weather. I'm your host Dan, aka Smasho. Today we'll be talking about Sunspot 2767 and its degradation, soaring silver prices, and how the Smash Store is open for business. First, we're looking at the sun at 131 angstroms. And we see Sunspot 2767 approaching the Earth-facing zone there south of the equator, as well as a significant active region rising here in the northeast. Most assuredly a sunspot at this point to produce that level of magnetic looping, plasma suspension, whatever you want to call it. And let's look at HelioViewer to examine the fields. There are the fields, and we've got some custom videos of that. Here's 304 angstroms. Not a whole lot of filamentary activity right now. No coronal mass ejections kicking off today or anything like that. Here is the current HelioViewer movie of the fields, and we see not a lot of organization. The sunspot did not remain beta class long enough to even be considered beta class, I don't think, but we did document a trailing North Pole polarity umbra yesterday on the Daily Space Weather video. And that umbra has now evaporated, and we only see the leading South Pole umbra. Here's another view of Sunspot 2767. And next we've got one of this active region rising. And to quote spaceweather.com, we're expecting to see some dark umbra emerging in the next 24 to 48 hours over here over the northeast limb. It could be a big one. Stay tuned for more videos. We'll cover it. 10.7 centimeter radial flux is up to 71. And that's the first time it's been above 70 since March. Looks like March. Anyway, there's the graph. And the KP index is currently at 1, a global measurement of geomagnetism. And we see a little bit of rise here in the X-ray flux. No real flaring. And as that sunspot rises, the likelihood of flaring goes up significantly, especially considering the size of that apparent active region in the northeast. Sunspot 2767 has reduced its probability of producing significant flares and coronal mass ejections. Proton flux remains flatlined. No surprises there. And we are in a slightly elevated coronal hole wind stream here. It's a fairly weak and diffuse one. Current solar wind density 3.5 protons per cubic centimeter. Current solar wind speed having just ramped up a bit to 408 kilometers a second. Again, an apparent coronal hole wind stream having just ramped down its density and ramped up its velocity. Expect to see this continue for the next, I'll say 18 hours or so, around, say, 400 kilometers a second. Next, looking at the geospace magnetosphere, to show you 4 hours of data courtesy University of Michigan. And this is the best geospace model that I know of. It's part of the space weather modeling framework. You can read all about it. If you look up geospace magnetosphere movies and click on details, the details of the space weather modeling framework are available in link form. Next, looking at ground geospace magnetic perturbations. Since we're living through a polar excursion, it's nice to see what's going on in sort of a real-time model here. Again, the last 4 hours of data, courtesy University of Michigan. Not a lot of perturbations there, and not a lot of induction from solar wind right now, and not a lot of magnetic action either. And welcome to another episode of The Smash Lights. Part of the daily space weather typically, although look for some Smash Lights standalone videos to come out soon. Today we're streaming live And we've got some interesting things to cover, such as how gold has broken out and the dollar is crashing. So for all of us who understand the way economics works, we were already forecasting a decline in the dollar. Is it worse than other large fiat currencies such as the euro and the Japanese yen? Well, absolutely not. But it's an indicator, and so is gold. And when you see the dollar crashing, you typically see gold rising. It's not particularly mysterious to people like Peter Schiff, for instance. So it's what you would call a safe haven, especially considering the situation with equities, let's just say. There are the currency markets. And let me just take a moment to check out the stream here. And just bear with me one moment. I've got to bring out the chat to see if anybody's leaving comments. And thanks to everybody who leaves comments wherever you leave them, whether it's live or whether it's in syndication on places like YouTube and on BitChute. Silver is also up over 6%. Here's the graph on silver. And this is pretty serious. By the way, silver's been as high as nearly $50 an ounce. Currently at $24.25 per ounce. If you notice, we were citing the silver price when it was down here below $12 an ounce. Please leave a comment if you remember us talking about silver for the last couple of years on the channel. And let's check and see what's going on in pre-market trading. I thought there was a pre-market section. Oh, there we go. There's a... And let's just move on to talk about smashomash.com/forum. Now we've got a bunch of threads, and we've got some activity now in the movie recommendations. Thanks everybody for leaving comments there and your movie recommendations. And I'll just let this scroll down and let people's posts speak for themselves. Now, Eugene Bagashov stated that his favorite horror flick is Event Horizon from 1997. Some pics from Kimberly as well as Nebo J. And I've got another one that I've just added to the list this morning. It's Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte, the psychological thriller from 1964, brought back into the limelight because R.I.P. Olivia de Havilland, who died yesterday at the age of 104, having survived 2 global pandemics. So check this one out if you like old movies. It's not particularly dated. It pretty much carries through to this day. Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte from 1964, surprisingly good, starring Bette Davis, Olivia de Havilland, and Joseph Cotten primarily. And here's the article from HuffPo about the unfortunate passing of Olivia de Havilland at age 104, seen here in the middle of the image. In a scene from Gone with the Wind. So a very prolific actress. Sorry to have lost her. And again, we are streaming live to Twitch. If you haven't subscribed over there, you want to see the content live, it's twitch.tv/smashomash, twitch.tv/smashomash. Also, please take a moment to press like and subscribe on YouTube, press the notification bell, please share on your social media, as we don't seem to be able to even get to 1,700 subscribers because reasons. We're also on BitChute, and there is exclusive content on all the sites. Thanks to our patrons, our new patrons, etc. You're the real source of funding for the content. Look for a credit crawl coming soon. We have added tiers over there, so now we have tiers all the way from $1 to $15 per month. 9 different tiers, and that's just basically for convenience. so people can pick however much they would like to donate per month. Again, we're greatly appreciative of that. Also on Subscribestar, and there are other links below the video as well. And let's talk about COVID and how I'm like, for you can. And that's the way, that's a representation of what my immune system thinks of COVID. Let's talk about face coverings. Do they lead to a false sense of security? Do they lead to a apparent stupidity? Well, yes, they certainly do. Now, you've got a bunch of white people here raising the black supremacy fist of black superiority in the air while kneeling because reasons, and they're going to cure racism with this stupidity. The question is, does wearing face coverings cause people to not socially distance as much, to not wash their hands and so on? Does it increase risk because of people touching their face and touching their masks and carrying around the stuff that collects on the inside and the outside of the masks and yada, yada, yada? So this is an article from SciTech Daily, and the article's determined that, sure enough, it doesn't really seem to increase the risk because of decreasing people's hand washing or something like this. And in their article, the team argue that it's time to lay risk compensation theory to rest. This dead horse now needs burying to prevent the continued threat it poses to public health. Excuse me. What a joke. Mask wearing is ineffective. I don't care what anybody says. Mask wearing is ineffective. The chances of a healthy person experiencing no symptoms passing on COVID, or any coronavirus for that matter, to somebody is incredibly low. So the requirement to lock down healthy people and make them wear masks is, was, and will continue to be absolutely COVIDiotic. Let's talk about some of the solutions here. We featured this one yesterday and before on the Daily Space Weather. Let's go back. Talk about nitrogen oxide again. Well, don't forget to breathe through your nose, folks. And it goes very, very deep, as you can increase your blood oxygen levels by 10 to 15% simply by breathing through your nose as opposed to breathing through your mouth. Why is it? It's because nitric oxide gets formed in your sinus cavity and then it gets inhaled in your lungs, which increases the amount of absorption by dilating blood vessels. Now, a lot of athletes take nitric oxide supplements for the exact same reason, because of the oxygenation and blood dilation effects. It also has effects on the heart, which are good effects, by the way. And if you haven't learned the technique of the Valsalva maneuver, it can also help and further increase the benefits of nose breathing. So this website here, Breathology, it's run by Stig Severinsen, who is a world champion freediver. And by the way, being on a respirator is bad for yet another reason, because it's respirating you through mouth breathing. And so it's ignoring this important chemical, nitric oxide. So if you haven't checked out the article yet, look it up. Nitrogen oxide, a pleasant poison, on the Breathology website, hosted by Stig Severinsen. There's also an article we're featuring here from Medical Express about how COVID-19 causes smell loss, and it's not a direct result of affecting the olfactory cells. It has to do with the cells around them, probably some sort of inflammatory response. But the most important thing to understand from this article is that loss of smell is a much better symptom with which to diagnose COVID-19 than coughing or fever or anything like that. So this could be an interesting article to read too. I'm just letting it scroll here. A majority of COVID-19 patients experience some level of anosmia. In other words, loss of the sense of smell. Most often temporary, according to the emerging data. Analysis of electronic health records indicate that COVID-19 patients are 27 times more likely to have smell loss, but are only about 2.2 to 2.6 times more likely to have fever, cough, or respiratory difficulty, making the anosmia, or loss of smell, probably the best symptom with which to diagnose COVID by symptoms. It does appear to be temporary. And the article goes on to talk about which genes are involved and so on. Just bear with me for a moment. I'm just going to let it scroll here. They're not exactly sure what the changes to the system are, but it appears to not be affecting the cells directly, but more the support cells that allow your olfactory cells to function. Anyway, that's an important piece of data there, how smell loss is the most effective symptom at diagnosing COVID through symptoms. So congratulations on surviving Smasher Price, my first pandemic. And we've created the Smasher Price shirts. Let me just take a moment to show you the one I'm wearing. Now I've got a sample here in black. And we've opened the Smasho Store as we've cited in the title of the video. So here it is, the Smasho Store. It's only got 2 products, and we've got some requests for the shirts in color. And we decided to make some leggings, as I may be in the market for a set of leggings moving into fall. So we've offered the leggings in purple, gold, black, and red. And we've put the Smasher Price, my first pandemic graphics there down at the bottom to commemorate the infantile response of mankind to a little cheap Chinese plastic coronavirus. As the mortality rate drops and drops and drops and drops. We're also offering the shirt now in pink, lime green, red, gold, orange, and purple. So again, congratulations on surviving a global pandemic. Look for more products to show up in the Smasho Store. It's actually the Smash Store. And the URL is teespring.com/stores/smash-store-5. Look for more products coming in there soon. And again, congratulations on surviving a global pandemic. People like Olivia de Havilland survived 2 global pandemics. And would you like to bet the farm whether or not she died of COVID-19? If you'd like to reach us for any sort of breaking news or for any reason, really, feel free to reach out to us at the Smasho VoIP line. It's country code 1610, area code 936-9799. That's country code +1, area code 610-936-9799. And here is the Smash phone. It's right here in my hand. Again, thanks to everybody who's texted, called, left voice messages, hate mail, etc. We appreciate all of that. And here ends another episode of The Smash Lights. And for all you daily space weather folks, let's get back to some more data. Here's the GOES magnetometer data, and we're seeing quite odd magnetometer data here, really. And we've been snapping back and forth into the North Pole, South Pole polarity current sheets for the last couple of days. And we're still I think we're finally out of that rift zone now where we're sort of undecided which current sheet that we're located in. Let's take a look on the Gong 2 data. This data is 2 hours and 5 minutes old, and it's looking like we're back in the North Pole current sheet, as we said yesterday. And we expect to be there at least until that sunspot in the northeast rises and makes its appearance, and that might shoot us right back into the South Pole current sheet again. And here's what we're talking about in the line of sight field plot. You're going to see the B field being pulled down toward sunspot 2767. But when this sunspot rises up here, the B field's going to be pulled back up again. So that's going to expose the current sheet to the solar polar south field, this field shown here in red, and that'll snap us back into the South Pole current sheet as a tug-of-war happens between those 2 sunspots and the B field. Next, looking at the electron content, there's the 1-year graph of that. moving back into a normal range here after seeing a couple of months of totally flatlined electron flux. Here's the 3-day electron flux, and we didn't quite get into warning levels yesterday, and we're not expecting to see them today either because we have an elevated solar wind speed. Next, we're going to look at the total air column all the way from the thermosphere down to where your GPS handset would be located. It's the total electron content forecast. And we don't see any big anomalies in this. It's looking actually pretty normal right here, with some minor anomalies there over the Caribbean as well as Mexico. But nothing big. Expect your GPS to be working pretty well here. And let's look at just the ionosphere layer. Now that we've looked at the entire air column, here is just the ionosphere, courtesy of Australian Government Bureau of Meteorology. So this is 6 hours of data. And the ionosphere is looking fairly normal here. Let's bring up the latest image. Nothing too exciting going on there. That image from 8:45 Universal Time. And before we talk about Delta Aquarids, let me just check the stream and make sure that it's healthy, and indeed it is. So if you'd like to view the Delta Aquarids, those of you in the Southern Hemisphere will have a better opportunity. And the Delta Aquarids are typically active from July 12th to about August 23rd. So this week should be a good time. I believe it's in the pre-dawn hours. This article's from earthsky.org, and it is featured on spaceweather.com if you want to read about the Delta Aquarids. They'll be visible between the horizon and Pegasus, apparently. And there's an image of Comet 96P, which is the possible parent of the Delta Aquarid meteor shower. Notice how it's got an ion tail. And next, looking at the solar system, here's where stuff is. Here's where things will be in a week. It looks like a full moon. And I like to use in-the-sky.org to make sky charts so I can know what stars and planets I'm looking at. If you're up before dawn, you might be able to see Venus and Mercury if you have a low horizon. Also, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn may be up there depending on what time you're up before dawn. Hawaii's Hurricane Douglas is starting to finally sort of move off to the north. Here's weather.gov's map, and you can see there still are some warnings there around the Texas Gulf Coast and some small craft advisories in the Gulf. Here's Hurricane Douglas, and this is the water vapor map of it as it's moving toward the northernmost islands of Hawaii. I don't know which ones they are. Are they Maui? I have no idea. But there's the sort of the current state of affairs on today, July 27th. Let's look at volcanoes. Speaking of Hawaii, Mount Abiko's erupting, flight level 070. Nishino-jima exploding, flight level 120. That's 12,000 feet of altitude. Suwanuse-jima, producing a 6,000-foot ash plume. Popocatépetl has dispersed its volcanic ash, although steam and gas emissions are observed at summit webcam. Sangay is still exploding, flight level 200 at Sangay. Revenador exploding, 14,000-foot ash plume there. Sabakaya exploding, producing puff emissions large enough to create a 25,000-foot above altitude plume of volcanic ash. Please do not attempt to do a back handspring over the caldera. Earthquake risk should be a little bit relaxed now as that coronal mass ejection seems to have chilled out. However, here's the last 24 hours. We don't see anything over a 6 magnitude. And we're just going to scroll up the list here, citing anything out of the ordinary. And please leave us a comment if we miss anything. We are more than happy to edit our work and put comments in correcting me. Here's a small deep quake on the mainland of Alaska. And here's a shallow quake at Hawaii once again. 800 meters above sea level, about 2,400 feet. And that one is right under Mauna Loa. So likely magmatic activity happening there. And let's move on. Next, we're looking at pressure maps here on windy.com. Here's where they are now, pressure systems. We're going to let it advance about 24 hours. Actually, a little more than 24 hours, till about noontime tomorrow. There's where things will be at noon my time. And it looks like that low's breaking up there. Hurricane Douglas expected to be downgraded according to that map without looking at any forecasts. Because I understand atmospheric physics, which is why I can do real meteorology and look at data and not have to go to AccuWeather.com to forecast your weather for you. Anyway, here's what's going on with the jet streams of the eastern world. Major anticyclone there over northeastern India. Here are the jets of the western world. Major anticyclone off the coast of South America there. Actually, off of both coasts there's an anticyclone. Plus, we've got significant portions of the jet stream moving east to west, which is backwards, if you didn't know. Here are water maps for Africa and Europe. Water vapor maps for the Far East and Oceania. How about a lightning map? It's lightningmaps.org. I like to turn it on when I hear thunder. It could save your bacon, maybe even your poultry. Hey, Columbia, Missouri. Hey, Kansas City. There's thunder rolling in. Perhaps get outside and look to the east. Or if you're in Jefferson City, look to the east. You could have quite the light show, as it is not light out yet there. Here's a water vapor map for the Americas. And you can see those counterclockwise rotating anticyclones off of both the east and the west coast of South America. We won't name them today. It looks like the Anderson-Cooper anticyclone is starting to break down a bit in the Central Pacific. Next, looking at the U.S. Doppler radar map to show a significant band of storms here over the Texas Stovepipe, Oklahoma Panhandle, Kansas, Missouri, Iowa. About to move into Illinois, or as I like to call it, Illinois. Here's what's going on in the cloud layer. We're not going to zoom in or anything. There's nothing too exciting happening there. And at nighttime, when it's too dark to see the clouds, we use the NASA GOES Interactive Shortwave Radiation Map. It's a satellite. Here's the water vapor situation. And we will zoom in on this convergence over Iowa as there is a massive pressure gradient. And perhaps it helps our viewers to understand atmospheric physics a little bit. Or we say things like, you see that dry air? You realize that's more massive than that moist air, right? And people go, huh? Yeah, it's because nitrogen is more massive than H2O. And that is why dry air is more massive than moist air, because water makes up a significant percentage of the atmosphere sometimes. The drier the air is, the more massive it is. This is why a bicycle goes faster on a hot, humid day than on a dry day. A dry, cold day is much slower due to air viscosity than a hot, humid day. Anyway, if you're flying a plane across these areas, you're going to see massive pressure gradients and massive turbulence. You may be hurled from your chair, because when you go from a place like this to a place like this, you could drop 30 feet due to the airspeed requirements of lift caused by wings and air viscosity and all that happy stuff. Thanks for tuning in, Smash team. Again, please share on your social media. Allow me to vanish. Again, thanks everybody for tuning in. Please consider purchasing a shirt if you'd like to advertise for smashomash.org, or perhaps you'd just like to open conversations up about people about what an infantile and pathetic response mankind has had to the coronavirus, COVID-19, SARS-CoV-2, something that's about as scary as a little puppy or a kitten. Thanks for flying American Smashways. Please keep your head and arms inside the Smash plane at all times. We don't need anybody to be dismembered. We've got 3 bonus features, starting with the intensity gram, to show you that Sunspot 2767, it's getting a little light colored inside. It looks like it's degrading. Why do I have to draw an arrow to that, like it's not grabbing your attention? Next, looking at the colorized magnetogram, to show you once again that this area that was an umbra yesterday is no longer an umbra. And that does show you a little bit more degradation there from Sunspot 2767. Let's do one more video here, a 48-hour view in 94 angstroms. Hopefully it'll load quickly. Just give us a quick moment here. Again, we are streaming live at twitch.tv/smashomash. So thanks again for tuning in, folks. Remember, please visit the links below the video. Please consider supporting the channel and increasing the probability that these videos will remain free, publicly visible, and not hidden. Remember, stare at the sun, attempt to understand the physics. Welcome to the Neo-Renaissance, and may that solar wind be at your back and that covidiacy absent. That covidiacy absent. May that solar wind be at your back and that covidiacy absent from wherever you are. Because it sucks. Oh darn. Let's go back. Sorry about that, folks. There's Sunspot 2767. It's degrading. There's the magnetic field. Its trailing magnetic field, its umbra, has evaporated. And here's 94 angstroms. A great image of that active region rising in the northeast. And we will see you next time. Ta-ta.